The morning sun cast golden light across the crystal towers of New Geneva, Earth's capital city. Admiral Sarah Chen walked through the Peace Memorial Gardens, her footsteps silent on the soft grass paths. The gardens covered what had once been the largest military base on Earth, 2,000 years ago. Now children played where weapons had been stored, and flowers grew where soldiers had trained for war. Sarah stopped at the center of the gardens, where a simple stone stood with words carved deep into its surface. Never again 2157. She read those words every morning, as her grandmother had taught her, and her grandmother's grandmother before that. The final wars of 2157 had nearly destroyed humanity. Cities burned, oceans boiled, billions died. When the smoke cleared, humanity made a promise that would last 2,000 years. "Admiral Chen," called a voice behind her. Sarah turned to see Captain Marcus Webb approaching. He wore the blue uniform of the peacekeepers, the same color Sarah wore. They were not soldiers anymore. They were healers, rescuers, and helpers. "What news from the outer colonies, Marcus?" Sarah asked. She already knew it would be good news. In 2,000 years, it was always good news from human settlements. "The Mars colony finished their new hospital yesterday," Marcus said with a smile. "They can now help 10,000 more patients each year. And the Jupiter station sent word that their new water purification system is working perfectly. They want to share the technology with the Centauri worlds." Sarah nodded. This was how humanity lived now. They helped. They healed. They built things that made life better for everyone in the galaxy. The other races knew humans as the ones who came when disaster struck, who shared their medicine freely, who asked for nothing in return but peace. "Any word from the Galactic Council meeting?" Sarah asked as they walked toward the city center. "Ambassador Torres sent a message this morning," Marcus replied. "The Zephyrian Empire is still making threats against the Outer Rim colonies. Some of the smaller races are asking for protection." Sarah felt something cold in her stomach. The Zephyrians were warriors, always looking for fights. They had tried many times to make humans join their wars. They could not understand why a race as advanced as humanity refused to fight. "What did the Council decide?" Sarah asked. "The same as always. More talks, more treaties, more promises that no one will hurt anyone else." Marcus sighed. "The Zephyrians just laugh at the treaties. They think words on paper mean nothing." They reached the city center where thousands of humans went about their daily lives. Scientists shared their discoveries in the great libraries. Artists created beautiful things that made people smile. Engineers designed machines that helped sick people get better. Children learned about the stars and dreamed of exploring them in peace. This was what 2,000 years of peace had built. Earth was a paradise. Hunger was gone. Disease was rare. War was just a word in history books that made people shake their heads in sadness. "Do you ever wonder," Marcus said quietly, "what would happen if someone really threatened us? Not with words, but with real danger?" Sarah looked at him carefully. It was a dangerous question. The kind that could get a peacekeeper in trouble with the Terran Council. "The Council says there is always another way," Sarah answered. "Always another solution that doesn't involve violence." "But what if there isn't?" Marcus asked. "What if someone did something so terrible that talking couldn't fix it?" Sarah didn't answer right away. She thought about her training. Years of learning how to rescue people from disasters, how to heal the sick, how to build instead of destroy. But sometimes late at night she found herself reading the old military manuals in the archives. The ones from before the long peace. She told herself it was just curiosity about history. "The Council believes that will never happen," Sarah said finally. "They believe that peace can solve any problem." "And do you believe that?" Marcus asked. Sarah looked around at the beautiful city, at the happy people, at the children playing without fear. "I want to believe it," she said. Later that day, Sarah sat in her office at the Peacekeeper headquarters. On her desk were reports from across human space. A new medicine that could cure a deadly alien disease. A ship design that could carry food to hungry worlds faster than ever before. Plans for a school that would teach alien children alongside human ones. Her computer chimed with a new message. It was from the Kepler colony, one of humanity's newest settlements near the edge of known space. The message was from colony leader Dr. James Park. "Admiral Chen," the message read, "we have received visits from Zephyrian scouts 3 times this week. They ask many questions about our children, especially the young ones. They want to know about human genetics, about how our minds work, about our families. Our people are becoming worried. The Zephyrians look at our children like they are studying them. Please advise. Sarah stared at the message for a long time. She had heard rumors that the Zephyrians were interested in human biology. Some said they thought humans had hidden abilities, special powers that could be unlocked. But humans had never shown any such powers. They were just people who chose peace over war. She typed back, "Continue to be polite but careful. Document all interactions. Report anything unusual immediately. Remember, we have treaties with the Zephyrian Empire. They cannot harm human citizens without facing consequences from the Galactic Council." As she sent the message, Sarah wondered if those consequences would be enough. The Galactic Council was like humanity. They preferred to talk rather than fight. But what if talking wasn't enough? That evening, Sarah walked through the streets of New Geneva. The city was alive with music and laughter. In the parks, families had picnics under the stars. Children ran and played safe and happy. Their parents watched them with love and pride, never fearing that harm might come to them. Sarah passed the Museum of the Final Wars. Inside were pictures and artifacts from humanity's last age of violence. The display showed the horrors of war, the pain it caused, the lives it destroyed. Every human child visited this museum as part of their education. They learned why peace was so important, why violence could never be the answer. But as Sarah walked home, she found herself thinking about those old military manuals again. About the weapons humans had built before the long peace. About the strategic minds that had planned great battles across the stars. All of that knowledge still existed, locked away in computer archives that most people had forgotten. Humanity had the technology to build incredible things. Their medical nanobots could heal any injury. Their terraforming machines could remake entire worlds. Their faster-than-light drives could cross the galaxy in days. They had used all of this power to help others, to build, to heal. But technology that could heal could also hurt. Machines that could build could also destroy. Ships that carried medicine could carry other things too. Sarah shook her head. These were dangerous thoughts. The kind that went against everything humanity had believed for 2,000 years. The long peace had brought them paradise. Why would anyone want to risk losing that? She looked up at the stars, where human colonies spread across dozens of worlds, all of them peaceful, all of them safe, all of them protected by nothing more than treaties and the goodwill of their neighbors. Sarah hoped that would always be enough. But deep in her heart, in a place she didn't like to examine too closely, she wasn't sure it would be. The long peace had lasted 2,000 years. Sarah prayed it would last 2,000 more. The alarm that woke Admiral Sarah Chen at 3 a.m. was one she had never heard before. It was deep and urgent, cutting through the peaceful quiet of New Geneva like a knife. She rolled out of bed, her training taking over even before she was fully awake. Her emergency communicator was flashing red. Sarah grabbed it with shaking hands. In 2,000 years of peace, emergency communicators had only flashed yellow for natural disasters. Red meant something else entirely. "Admiral Chen here," she said into the device. "Sarah, thank God," came the voice of Director Williams from the Terran Council. His voice was tight with panic. "We need you at headquarters immediately. Something has happened to the Kepler colony ships." Sarah was already putting on her uniform. "What kind of something?" "Just get here now." The streets of New Geneva were eerily quiet as Sarah's transport raced through them. A few early workers stopped to watch her pass, confusion on their faces. They had never seen a peacekeeper vehicle moving so fast, with lights flashing. The Terran Council headquarters was blazing with activity when Sarah arrived. People ran back and forth between offices. Voices were raised in urgent conversation. Sarah had never seen anything like it. Director Williams met her at the entrance. He looked like he had aged 10 years in one night. His face was pale, his hands shaking. "Sarah, I need you to watch something," he said. "But I need to warn you first. This is going to be the hardest thing you've ever seen." He led her to the main communications center, where a large screen dominated the wall. Several other officials were already there, their faces grim. Sarah recognized Ambassador Torres, who had just returned from the Galactic Council. She also saw Dr. Helen Price, the head of colonial affairs, and General Morrison, one of the few humans who still studied military history. "Play the message," Director Williams said quietly. The screen flickered to life. Sarah saw the bridge of the colony ship New Hope, one of 3 vessels carrying families from Earth to establish a new settlement in the Kepler system. She recognized Captain Rodriguez, a good man she had worked with on several rescue missions. But something was wrong. Captain Rodriguez's face was streaked with tears. Behind him, Sarah could see smoke and sparks from damaged equipment. "This is Captain Rodriguez of the New Hope." The recording began. "We are under attack by Zephyrian Empire forces. They appeared without warning 20 minutes ago. We tried to communicate to ask what they wanted, but they didn't respond to our hails." The captain's voice broke. "They're not trying to destroy our ships. They're boarding us. They're taking our children. Oh God, they're taking the children." The image shook as another explosion rocked the ship. In the background, Sarah could hear screaming. Human voices crying out in fear and pain. "They have weapons we've never seen before," Captain Rodriguez continued. "Some kind of stunning technology. They hit the adults with it and we can't move, can't fight back. But the children are still awake. They're dragging them away." The screen filled with static for a moment, then cleared to show a different angle. Through a window, Sarah could see a Zephyrian warship. Its cargo bays were opening and small figures were being carried inside. Children. Human children. "Maria," someone screamed off camera. "They're taking Maria." Sarah recognized the voice of Dr. Elena Vasquez, the xenobiologist who had been traveling with her 12-year-old daughter to the new colony. Elena had been excited about studying alien plant life in the Kepler system. She had sent Sarah pictures of Maria's excitement about seeing new worlds. The recording continued for another few minutes, showing the systematic capture of every human child on all 3 colony ships. 347 children, ranging in age from 6 to 16, all taken, all gone. When the recording ended, the room was silent except for the quiet sobbing of Dr. Price. "How long ago did this happen?" Sarah asked, her voice barely above a whisper. 8 hours, Director Williams replied. "The message just reached us. The Zephyrian ships disappeared into hyperspace immediately after the attack. We have no idea where they went." Ambassador Torres stepped forward. "I've already contacted the Galactic Council. They're calling an emergency session. The Zephyrian Empire will be charged with piracy, kidnapping, and violation of the Colonial Protection Treaty." "What good will that do?" Dr. Price asked angrily. "They have our children. What are we going to do, send them a strongly worded letter?" "Helen, please," Director Williams said. "We have to follow proper procedures. The law must be respected, the law." Dr. Price stood up, her face red with anger. "The law didn't protect those children." "The law didn't stop the Zephyrians from taking them." Sarah stared at the dark screen. 347 children. She had watched the recordings from the colony ships before they left Earth. Happy families excited about starting new lives among the stars. Children laughing and playing, looking forward to their great adventure. "What do the Zephyrians want with human children?" Sarah asked. General Morrison cleared his throat. "Our intelligence suggests they've been interested in human genetics for some time. They believe humans have latent psychic abilities that could be unlocked through experimentation." The word hung in the air like poison. Experimentation. On children. "We have to get them back," Sarah said. "Of course we do," Director Williams agreed. "The Galactic Council will demand their immediate return. We'll impose economic sanctions. We'll cut off all trade with the Zephyrian Empire. That could take years," Sarah interrupted. "Those children don't have years. If the Zephyrians are planning to experiment on them..." She couldn't finish the sentence. No one could. Over the next few hours, more reports came in. The adult colonists had been left alive but stranded. Their ships were badly damaged, their communication systems destroyed. Rescue vessels were already on the way, but it would be days before they arrived. The footage from the attack played on news channels across human space. Sarah watched people's reactions change from shock to disbelief, to something she had never seen on human faces before. Rage. Protests began in the streets of every human world. People demanded action. They demanded their children back. They demanded that anyone do something more than talk. "What can we do?" they asked. "What can we actually do?" Sarah found herself in her office staring at her computer screen. Without really thinking about it, she opened the military archives. The old files from before the long peace, information about ships, weapons, tactics, things humanity had sworn never to use again. The technology was still there, hidden away, forgotten by most, but still there. Humanity had built incredible things in the name of peace. Medical nanobots that could repair any damage to the human body, terraforming equipment that could reshape entire planets, faster-than-light drives that could cross the galaxy in days, all of it designed to help. All of it used to heal and build and create. But Sarah found herself thinking about other uses. About what those same nanobots could do to alien biology. About what terraforming equipment could do to an enemy planet. About what those faster-than-light drives could carry besides medicine and supplies. Her communicator beeped. Another message from the colony ships. This one was from Dr. Elena Vasquez herself. "My daughter is gone," Elena's voice said, thick with tears. "My little girl is gone, and I couldn't protect her. They stunned me, held me down, made me watch as they carried her away. She was screaming for me, calling for her mama, and I couldn't do anything. I couldn't do anything." The message continued. "The Galactic Council will talk. The diplomats will negotiate. The politicians will make speeches. But my daughter is in the hands of monsters right now, and talking won't save her. Someone has to do something. Someone has to save our children." Sarah closed the communication and sat in the darkness of her office. Outside, she could hear the sounds of the protests growing louder. Thousands of humans in the streets demanding action their government couldn't take. For 2,000 years, humanity had chosen peace. They had built a paradise based on the belief that violence was never the answer, that there was always another way. But as Sarah sat in her office listening to the cries of her people, she wondered if they had been wrong. If there were some things that couldn't be solved with words. Some evils that couldn't be stopped with treaties. 347 children were out there somewhere in the hands of aliens who wanted to use them for experiments. Children who were crying for their parents. Children who needed someone to save them. And for the first time in 2,000 years, humanity was learning what it felt like to be helpless. 3 days after the attack, the protests had grown beyond anything humanity had ever seen. In every city on every human world, millions of people filled the streets. Their signs bore the faces of the missing children and words that hadn't been spoken in 2,000 years. War, if necessary. Dr. Elena Vasquez stood on the steps of the Terran Council building, her voice carrying across the crowd through speakers that reached every corner of New Geneva. She held a picture of her daughter Maria, smiling in her school uniform. "They want us to wait," Elena said, her voice breaking but strong. "They want us to trust in diplomacy while our children suffer. The Galactic Council has been talking for 3 days.
3 days.
How long do you think our children have been screaming for help?" The crowd roared its anger. Sarah Chen watched from her office window, feeling something she had never experienced before. It was like a fire in her chest, burning hotter with each passing hour. Her computer chimed with another update from the Galactic Council. Ambassador Torres had sent his daily report. More meetings, more discussions, more promises that pressure would be applied to the Zephyrian Empire. But no action. No results. No children coming home. Sarah's door opened without a knock. Captain Marcus Webb entered, his face grim. Behind him came General Morrison, Dr. Helen Price, and several other senior officials. Sarah had never seen them look like this before, determined in a way that felt dangerous. "We need to talk," Marcus said. Sarah gestured for them to sit, but none of them did. They stood in a circle around her desk like conspirators, which she realized they probably were. "The council is going to fail," General Morrison said bluntly. "They're going to talk and negotiate and write treaties while those children die. We all know it." "What are you suggesting?" Sarah asked, though she thought she already knew. Dr. Price leaned forward. "We've been looking at the old archives, the military files from before the long peace. Sarah, the technology is still there. All of it." "That technology was banned for good reason," Sarah replied, but her voice lacked conviction. "Was it?" Marcus asked. "Or was it banned because we were afraid of ourselves? Because we thought we couldn't be trusted with power?" General Morrison activated a holographic display above Sarah's desk. It showed a star map of the galaxy, with human colonies marked in blue and Zephyrian space in red. "We've been tracking Zephyrian communications," he said. "They're not even trying to hide what they're doing. They've taken the children to their research facilities on Zephyr Prime. They're bragging about it, calling it the greatest scientific opportunity in galactic history." Sarah's hands clenched into fists. "Research facilities. They're experimenting on our children right now. The worst part," Dr. Price said quietly, "is that we could stop it, right now. Today. We have the technology, we have the knowledge, we have the resources. The only thing stopping us is a promise we made 2,000 years ago. Sarah stood up and walked to her window. Below, the crowd had grown larger. She could see parents holding pictures of their children, desperate people who had put their faith in a government that seemed powerless to help them. "Show me," Sarah said without turning around. The holographic display changed to show technical specifications. Sarah recognized some of it. Medical nanobots, terraforming equipment faster than light engines. But now the displays showed different applications. Military applications. "Our medical nanobots can repair human tissue," Dr. Price explained. "But they can also be programmed to attack specific alien biology. We could create a plague that only affects Zephyrians. Our terraforming machines can create atmospheres and reshape landscapes," General Morrison added. "They can also strip atmospheres and crack planets apart." "Our FTL drives are the fastest in the galaxy," Marcus said. "We could reach Zephyr Prime before they even know we're coming." Sarah studied the data. 2,000 years of peaceful technological development, all of it suddenly revealed to have devastating military potential. Humanity had built the tools of gods and convinced themselves they were only gardening equipment. "There's more," General Morrison said. He activated another display. "We've been analyzing galactic military capabilities. Every major power, every fleet, every weapon system." The display showed a three-dimensional map of military forces across known space. Human territory was marked with question marks, unknown capabilities. But as Sarah watched, the question marks changed to red warning symbols. "We've been observers for 2,000 years," General Morrison continued. "We've watched every war, studied every battle, analyzed every strategy. We know how everyone else fights. We know their weaknesses, their blind spots, their limitations. And they know nothing about us," Marcus added. "They think we're helpless. They think we've forgotten how to fight, have we?" Sarah asked. "No," General Morrison said firmly. "We've just been choosing not to. But the knowledge is still here. The instincts are still here. And now we have technology that makes our ancestors' weapons look like toys." Sarah turned back to the group. "What exactly are you proposing?" Dr. Price stepped forward. "A rescue mission. Fast, precise, surgical. We get our children back and show the galaxy that humanity is not defenseless." "The Council will never approve it," Sarah said. "The Council doesn't have to know," Marcus replied. "Not until it's over." Sarah stared at him. "You're talking about mutiny, about abandoning 2,000 years of peace." "I'm talking about saving our children," Marcus said. "I'm talking about proving that peace doesn't mean weakness." The room fell silent. Sarah could hear the crowd outside, chanting the names of the missing children. She thought about Maria Vasquez, 12 years old, who had been excited about seeing alien plants. She thought about all the other children, frightened and alone, subjected to experiments by aliens who saw them as nothing more than interesting specimens. "How many ships would we need?" Sarah asked quietly. General Morrison smiled grimly. "Just one, but it would have to be special." Over the next hour, they laid out the plan. It was audacious, dangerous, and completely against everything humanity had stood for since the long peace began. It was also the only plan that had a chance of bringing the children home alive. "We'll need volunteers," Sarah said. "People willing to risk everything." "I've already made inquiries," Marcus said. "Half the peacekeeper force has volunteered, so have thousands of civilians, including me," came a voice from the doorway. Elena Vasquez stood there, her face set with determination. "I'm a xenobiologist. I know alien physiology better than almost anyone. You'll need that knowledge." Sarah looked at her. "Elena, you're not military trained." "Neither are you, really," Elena replied. "None of us are. But we're parents. We're humans, and our children are out there." Sarah walked back to her window. The crowd below had grown even larger. She could see the faces of people who had lived their entire lives in peace, now demanding war. She could see parents who had never imagined violence, now ready to fight for their children. For 2,000 years, humanity had believed that peace was the answer to everything. That violence was never necessary, that there was always another way. But as Sarah looked down at the crowd, she realized something that chilled her to the bone. Peace had only been possible because no one had ever truly threatened what humans loved most. The Zephyrians had made a mistake. They had touched the one thing that could wake humanity from its long dream of peace. They had taken the children. "Start preparing the ship," Sarah said. "I'll handle the council. What will you tell them?" Dr. Price asked. Sarah turned back to the group. For the first time in 3 days, she smiled. But it wasn't a peaceful smile. It was something else entirely. Something that hadn't been seen on a human face for 2,000 years. "I'll tell them the truth," she said. "That humanity is about to remember who we used to be, and that the galaxy is about to learn who we really are." Outside, the crowd continued to chant, but now the words were different. Now they weren't just demanding action, they were promising it. The long peace was over, and humanity was waking up. The vote in the Terran Council chamber was closer than anyone had expected. 51% in favor, 49% against. For the first time in 2,000 years, humanity had officially declared war. Admiral Sarah Chen stood at the podium as the results were announced, watching the faces of the council members. Some looked terrified, others looked relieved. All of them understood that they had just crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. "The motion is carried," announced Director Williams, his voice shaking. "Humanity is now at war with the Zephyrian Empire for the recovery of our children and the defense of our people." The chamber erupted. Half the delegates cheered, the other half sat in stunned silence. Outside, Sarah could hear the roar of the crowd as news of the vote reached them. But Sarah wasn't thinking about politics anymore. She was thinking about the ship. The HMS Mercy had been built as a hospital ship, designed to carry medical supplies and rescue teams to disaster zones across the galaxy. It was fast, well-shielded, and equipped with the most advanced technology humanity possessed. For 50 years, it had been a symbol of human compassion. Now it was becoming something else entirely. Dr. Elena Vasquez met Sarah at the shipyard. Elena had barely slept in the week since the vote, working day and night with teams of scientists and engineers to transform the Mercy from a vessel of healing into an instrument of war. "Show me what we have, Sarah," said Elena, led her through the ship's corridors. What Sarah saw defied everything she thought she knew about human technology. The medical nanobots were the easiest to modify, Elena explained as they entered what had once been a surgery ward. Now it housed rows of gleaming cylinders filled with gray liquid. "We've reprogrammed them to target Zephyrian cellular structure. One drop of this in their air supply will shut down their nervous systems in minutes." "Will it kill them?" Sarah asked. "Only if we want it to," Elena replied grimly. "We can set it for temporary paralysis or permanent damage. Your choice." They moved to the next section, which had been the ship's emergency supply bay. Now it contained devices Sarah didn't recognize, sleek angular machines that hummed with barely contained energy. "Terraforming equipment," explained Chief Engineer Rodriguez. "Normally used to create breathable atmospheres on dead worlds. We've reversed the process. These can strip the atmosphere from an entire planet in hours, or selectively remove oxygen from specific areas. And this," Elena said, leading Sarah to the ship's former nursery, "is our new weapons control center." The room was filled with holographic displays showing star maps, ship configurations, and tactical data. Sarah recognized some of the information. It was every piece of military intelligence humanity had gathered over 2,000 years of careful observation. "We know how they fight," said Captain Marcus Webb, who had been appointed as Sarah's second-in-command. "We've watched them in dozens of conflicts. We know their ship designs, their tactics, their weaknesses. They've never had to fight an enemy that understood them so completely." Sarah studied the displays. The Zephyrian Empire was vast, their military powerful. But as she looked at the analysis, she began to see what her team had discovered. The Zephyrians fought like every other galactic power, with brute force, overwhelming firepower, and little subtlety. They had never fought anyone like humanity. "How long until we reach Zephyr Prime?" Sarah asked. 18 hours, replied Navigator Chen. "Our new FTL modifications will get us there 3 times faster than any Zephyrian ship could make the same journey." "And the children?" Elena's face darkened. "Our intelligence suggests they're being held in the primary research facility on the planet's northern continent. It's heavily guarded, but we've identified weaknesses." Over the next few hours, Sarah watched her ship transform around her. The crew worked with an intensity she had never seen before. These were people who had spent their lives saving others, healing the sick, rescuing the lost. Now they were preparing for something none of them had ever done before. They were preparing for war. "Admiral," came a voice over the ship's communication system. "This is Earth Control. We're receiving reports from across human space. Every peacekeeper station, every research facility, every colonial outpost is requesting permission to join the war effort." Sarah activated the main view screen. The image showed her home planet, Earth, but it was Earth as she had never seen it before. The peaceful gardens and artistic spires were still there, but now they were surrounded by shipyards working at full capacity. Hundreds of vessels were under construction, their designs unlike anything humanity had built during the long peace. "How is this possible so quickly?" Sarah asked. "We were never as unprepared as we thought," General Morrison replied from Earth. "The shipyards were always there. We just used them for civilian vessels. The factories were always there. We just made medical equipment instead of weapons. The people who knew how to build war machines were always there. They just spent 2,000 years building other things." Sarah understood. Humanity hadn't forgotten how to wage war. They had simply chosen not to. But the knowledge, the capability, the will, it had all been there waiting. "What about the other galactic powers?" Sarah asked. "The Galactic Council is in chaos," Ambassador Torres reported from the diplomatic station. "Half the member races are demanding we stop before we start. The other half are quietly asking if we need any help." Sarah smiled grimly. "And the Zephyrians? They don't know we're coming yet. Their intelligence network has been focused on monitoring our diplomatic efforts. They never imagined we'd take direct action." The HMS Mercy dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Zephyr system, 12 hours ahead of schedule. Sarah stood on the bridge looking at the tactical display that showed enemy positions throughout the system. 37 Zephyrian warships, Marcus reported. They're scattered across the system in normal patrol patterns. The research facility is on the planet's surface, protected by orbital defense platforms. "Any sign that they know we're here?" Sarah asked. "None. We're running silent and our new stealth modifications are working perfectly." Sarah studied the enemy positions. In the old days, before the long peace, this would have been considered a suicide mission. One human ship against an entire system's defenses. But this wasn't the old days. And humanity wasn't the same species that had fought the final wars 2,000 years ago. "Target the orbital defense platforms first," Sarah ordered. "Elena, are the nanobots ready?" "All weapons systems are prepared," Elena confirmed. "Sarah, once we start this, there's no going back." Sarah thought about the children. 347 human children, trapped on the planet below, subjected to experiments by aliens who saw them as nothing more than interesting specimens. "There was no going back the moment they took our children," Sarah said. "All stations prepare for combat." The crew moved with practiced efficiency despite none of them having ever fought a real battle before. They had trained for this moment without knowing it, spending decades learning to operate under pressure, to save lives when every second counted, to work together as a team when everything was at stake. "Firing solution locked on primary targets," reported Weapons Officer Kim. "Fire," Sarah ordered. The HMS Mercy's new weapon system engaged silently. No missiles were fired, no energy beams lanced across space. Instead, streams of nanobots shot toward the orbital platforms at nearly the speed of light, invisible to enemy sensors. Within minutes, the platforms began to shut down one by one as the nanobots reached them and systematically dismantled their critical systems from the inside. "Platforms neutralized," Kim reported. "No survivors, but the crews are alive, just unconscious." Sarah nodded. They had chosen to be merciful where they could. But mercy had limits. "Enemy fleet is responding," Marcus announced. "All ships are converging on our position." "Let them come," Sarah said. "It's time they learned what humanity has become." The first wave of Zephyrian ships reached weapons range and opened fire with everything they had. Energy bolts and missile salvos filled space around the HMS Mercy. None of them found their target. "Stealth systems holding," reported the engineering team. "They can't get a target lock." "Return fire," Sarah ordered. What happened next would be talked about in military academies across the galaxy for centuries to come. The HMS Mercy didn't just fight the Zephyrian fleet, it dismantled them. Ship after ship simply stopped working as nanobots infiltrated their systems. Others found their weapons turning on themselves as human viruses took control of their computers. A few tried to escape, only to discover that their FTL drives had been sabotaged by devices they couldn't even detect. In 30 minutes, 37 Zephyrian warships had been neutralized with 0 human casualties. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Human Defense Force," Sarah broadcast on all Zephyrian frequencies. "We are here for our children. Surrender them immediately and your people will be spared. Resist and learn why humanity chose peace for 2,000 years." Not because we couldn't wage war, but because we were too dangerous to risk it. The response from the planet below was immediate. A transmission from the research facility showing human children in cages, with Zephyrian scientists promising to kill them all if the humans didn't retreat. Sarah's expression didn't change, but something cold and terrible settled in her eyes. The rescue shuttle touched down in the research facility's central courtyard as the last of the Zephyrian guards fell unconscious. Dr. Elena Vasquez was the first one out, running through the corridors with a scanner in her hand. Following the signals from the human life signs, Admiral Sarah Chen followed close behind, her heart pounding in a way that had nothing to do with the tactical situation. Around them, the facility was eerily quiet. The nanobots had done their work perfectly. Every Zephyrian was unconscious but alive while the human children remained unharmed. "Here," Elena called out, stopping in front of a reinforced door. "They're in here." Sarah used her plasma cutter to slice through the lock, and the door slid open to reveal a sight that would haunt her dreams forever. The children were alive, but they were not unchanged. Maria Vasquez sat in the corner of a sterile white cell, her dark hair now streaked with silver that seemed to move on its own. When she saw her mother, her eyes lit up with joy, but the walls around her began to crack as psychic energy poured out of her uncontrolled. "Mama!" Maria cried, reaching out. Elena ran to her daughter, but stopped just short when the metal floor began to warp under Maria's emotional response. "I can't control it," Maria whispered, tears streaming down her face. "They did something to me. Every time I feel strongly about something, things break." Sarah looked around the facility and saw the same story repeated in cell after cell. Some children showed physical changes: enhanced strength, altered bone structure, modified sensory organs. Others displayed mental abilities they couldn't control. Telepathy that let them hear everyone's thoughts at once. Precognition that showed them terrible possible futures. Telekinesis that responded to their emotions. 347 children had been taken. 347 were being rescued, but none of them were exactly the same as they had been before. "We need to get them to the medical bay," Sarah said, activating her communicator. "All teams prepare for enhanced containment protocols. The children have been altered." Over the next several hours, the HMS Mercy became a combination hospital ship and research vessel, as human medical teams tried to understand what had been done to their children. The Zephyrian research logs told the story in cold clinical language. They were trying to unlock human psychic potential, Dr. Elena reported to Sarah in the ship's conference room. The experiments were extensive: genetic modification, neural pathway reconstruction, forced mental evolution. They succeeded, but at a terrible cost. "What kind of cost?" Sarah asked, though she feared she already knew. "The children are in constant pain. Their bodies are trying to reject the modifications, but the changes are too deep to reverse. Their minds are being bombarded with abilities they don't understand and can't control. Some of them," Elena's voice broke, "some of them are begging us to make it stop." Sarah closed her eyes. They had won the war. They had rescued the children. But victory felt like ashes in her mouth. "Is there anything we can do?" "We're trying. Our best medical minds are working around the clock." "But Sarah, these modifications, they're beyond anything we've ever seen. It's like the Zephyrians were trying to create a new species." The journey back to Earth took 3 days. During that time, reports came in from across the galaxy. The Zephyrian Empire was in collapse. Their fleet had been systematically dismantled by human forces that appeared out of nowhere, struck with precision that defied understanding, and vanished before any effective response could be mounted. Some Zephyrian worlds had surrendered immediately. Others had tried to fight only to watch their defenses crumble in minutes. The few Zephyrian leaders who escaped were already seeking asylum on distant worlds, as far from human space as they could get. The galaxy's other powers watched in stunned silence as humanity demonstrated military capabilities that made their own forces look primitive by comparison. The peaceful humans who had been dismissed as weaklings for 2,000 years had revealed themselves to be the most dangerous species in known space. But on the HMS Mercy, none of that mattered. What mattered were the children. Sarah found Elena in the medical bay, sitting beside her daughter's bed. Maria was sedating, her psychic abilities temporarily suppressed by human medical technology. But even in sleep, tears ran down her face. "How is she?" Sarah asked quietly. Better for now, Elena replied. The doctors think they can reduce the pain, maybe even help her control the abilities. But Sarah, she's not the same little girl who left Earth 2 weeks ago. None of them are. Sarah sat down beside her old friend. What have we done, Elena? What we had to do. What any parent would do. Elena looked up at Sarah with eyes that held both gratitude and terrible sadness. You saved our children. But in doing so, we learned something about ourselves that maybe we didn't want to know. Over the next few days, as the HMS Mercy approached Earth, humanity grappled with the consequences of its first war in 2,000 years. The children would recover, at least partially. Human medical science was advancing rapidly as doctors worked to understand and treat the Zephyrian modifications. Some of the children might even learn to control their new abilities, to find ways to live with what had been done to them. But the larger question remained. What now? The Terran Council was in emergency session around the clock. Humanity had proven it could wage war with devastating effectiveness. The question was whether they should. Director Williams met Sarah at the shuttle port when she returned to Earth. His face showed the strain of 2 weeks without sleep. The galaxy is terrified of us, he said without preamble. Half the Galactic Council wants to expel humanity before we conquer everyone else. The other half wants to hire us as mercenaries. And what do we want? Sarah asked. That's what we need to decide. The debate that followed would reshape human civilization. Some argued for maintaining the military capabilities they had revealed, becoming the galaxy's protector against future threats. Others demanded a return to the old ways, insisting that the weapons be destroyed and the long peace restored. Admiral Sarah Chen found herself at the center of the discussion, the architect of humanity's return to war and the person best qualified to speak about its consequences. We learned something important, she said, addressing the full council session. Peace isn't the absence of the ability to fight. Peace is the choice not to fight when you could. For 2,000 years, we thought we were peaceful because we had forgotten how to wage war. But we were wrong. We were peaceful because we chose to be, even when we had the power to dominate others. But now that power is revealed, Director Williams pointed out, we can't put that knowledge back in the box. The galaxy knows what we're capable of. Sarah nodded, which is why I proposed the Guardian Protocol. She activated the holographic display showing her recommendations to the Council. We maintain our military capabilities, but we use them only to protect the innocent. We become the galaxy's shield against those who would harm others. We intervene when children are taken, when colonies are threatened, when the weak face the strong alone. And who decides when intervention is necessary? Asked Counselor Martinez. We all do. Together. With the same careful consideration we've used for everything else for the past 2,000 years. The debate continued for days. In the end, the Council voted to accept Sarah's proposal. Humanity would keep its newfound military strength but use it only to protect others. They would remain peaceful, but they would never again be helpless. The children recovered slowly. Maria Vasquez learned to control her psychic abilities, eventually becoming one of the first teachers at the new Institute for Enhanced Humans. Many of the other children found ways to use their new capabilities to help others, turning the Zephyrian experiments into tools for healing and protection. But they all carried scars, physical, mental, and emotional reminders of what had been done to them, and humanity carried scars too. The knowledge of what they could become when pushed too far. The understanding that their capacity for love was matched only by their capacity for destruction. Admiral Sarah Chen retired from active service 6 months after the war ended, but she remained as the head of the Guardian Protocol. Under her leadership, human forces became the galaxy's protectors, intervening in conflicts where civilians were threatened, stopping atrocities before they could begin, and ensuring that what happened to the human children would never happen to anyone else. The long peace was over, but something new had taken its place. A watchful peace, maintained by people who understood both the value of compassion and the necessity of strength. And throughout the galaxy, on worlds where children played safely under alien suns, parents told them stories of the humans, the gentle giants who had chosen peace for 2,000 years, and who had chosen war for just long enough to save their children and protect the innocent. The price of love, humanity had learned, was the willingness to fight for what you loved. And for the first time in 2,000 years, humanity was ready to pay that price. Maria Vasquez, now 16 and in control of her abilities, stood in the garden where Admiral Chen had once walked every morning. The memorial stone still stood there, with its carved words, "Never Again, 2157." But below it, a new stone had been placed. This one bore the names of the 347 children who had been taken, and Bello,